nearly as tall as Michelle. Michelle asked me indeed to come and talk a little bit about counterintuitive or intuitive artistic interfaces, and I decided to give it my own subtitle, and I decided to think of this subtitle that would work for some of these interfaces we're looking at, and I decided to talk a little bit about magical thinking and the concept of making strange. And so basically the premise of the stuff that I do is I'm interested in how we experience physical presence of the world around us, but particularly in relationship to objects that are electronic. So I'm interested in objects that amuse or surprise or can somehow give an idea or make our intuitions manifest themselves, particularly when it comes to understanding electronic devices. These new complex devices that have electronic sensing in them, they didn't used to exist. We haven't grown up with them. So every time we come across new technology, we have to develop new intuitions about what they do, how they work, how clever they are, how stupid they are, how we might be able to control them or how we might be able to fool them. And this is related, in my mind at least, to something that a researcher called Hayes called naive physics. Naive physics is a concept from artificial intelligence. It's a kind of physics of the everyday world. It's how you understand how to walk down the street and pick up a thing from the street without necessarily understanding the concepts of theoretical physics. You can work the world, even if you don't necessarily understand the finer workings of it, how it actually supposedly works. And so this kind of folk physics is the untrained human idea of basic physical phenomenon. And I'm feeling that there's a naive electronics or naive device or digital knowledge that we're constantly developing and redeveloping depending on these objects as they come across. So, magical thinking and making strange. Magic. Enchantment is described by Bennett as being both caught up and carried away. So it's not just the willing suspension of disbelief that Coleridge talks about, but it's the actual active reimagination of the world as we live it. The video that's playing here, if I have sound. These are two students of mine. They're working with very simple interfaces. They've never done electronics before. So what they're doing is they have a touch sensor, but instead of using it just on one body, they're splitting it over two bodies. So there's only something happening when they touch each other. And the thing that's happening is a dummy cloud inside. This is not high-tech at all, but this is a good example of how you can do stuff with very simple means if you are thinking about it like a child, or in this case, people who have never ever done anything with electronics before. This relates a little bit to Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote 3 laws of prediction. And I'm just going to concentrate on the third one. One of the things that he said, which I really like a lot, is that he says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If something is properly advanced from what we know, we won't have any way of knowing how it works. I've decided the device next to it is a Japanese ghost detector. I have no idea how it works, because I can only find Japanese information about it. And according to Arthur C. Clarke, it's either advanced technology that I simply don't understand, or it's crap. But you get the general idea. So, magical thinking, it happens when you don't understand what just happened. It can also happen in situations that are just random or just out of your control. It depends on 2 laws. The law of similarity, the effect resembles its cause, and the law of contagion. Things that were once in physical contact maintain a connection after the physical contact is broken. This sounds theoretical, but examples of magical thinking are voodoo dolls. They carry an object from a particular person, thus there is a strong connection between the person and the object. They have magical powers. Cargo cults. Does anybody know what a cargo cult is? Probably not. Cargo cults appeared in Polynesia, amongst other places, particularly after the Second World War. There was a particular situation happening. There was a bunch of little islands that didn't have a lot of visitors before the Second World War. And suddenly they were strategically important to both first the Japanese then the Americans. So you have these little islands that didn't have a lot of traffic. And suddenly first the Japanese and then the Americans landed with a ton of cargo, staff, airplanes, soldiers, things, to maintain random air bases and stuff. After the war, everybody leaves, no more cargo. So these tribes decided to develop cargo cults. They tried to figure out how to make more cargo arrive. So they thought about what they'd seen. They'd seen people building airstrips and airplanes, and people with flags, and people with earphones. So there's all these spontaneous and isolated occurrences of tribes building, in this case, a grass airplane to lure other airplanes to land, similar as to what you would with a bird. But also people building fake landing strips and doing signaling and things like this. And this is very similar to what we do with technology. How many times have you stood in front of some advanced toilet and waved your hands crazily to get the goddamn water to run? Because you just don't know where the sensor is. You stand there doing all sorts of crazy dances. And, I'm really, really want to put one day a camera on Schiphol to see what all the tourists do when they don't understand how to flush the toilets. I still don't understand. When do the toilets flush? There's got to be a system. But this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The last one is the classical magical thinking. It's a children's magical thinking. It is raining because I am sad. It's reversing the cause and the effect. It's a very dangerous and very tempting thing to do. I stepped on the lines of the street and it became a bad day. These things also happen with technology, You have to be nice to your car to make it start in the morning when it's cold. This kind of stuff. Making strange. Making strange is a really old concept. It comes from art, proper art, and it made a little detour through theater. It's the idea of forcing the audience to see common things in an unfamiliar way so that you can enhance the perception of the familiar. And the original idea is basically saying that the experience of seeing art is the experience of perceiving it. And by making the interface strange, the act of perceiving it takes longer. And you spend more time in the act of experiencing. So that's the sort of underlying idea. So, counterintuitive artistic interfaces. New technologies are essentially unknowable or magical to us, if they're new enough. Generally speaking, designers tend to aim for smooth to the point of invisible interfaces. Artistic interfaces can, not always, but can, engage in making new technology strange, and through this estrangement, illustrate and heighten our perception of it. And when we make these strange interfaces, we might just create within the people who perceive this stuff naive understandings that in turn reflect back to us and gives us ideas of how these things maybe, you walk into your installation and someone has some fantastic idea of how it actually works, only it's not right, but maybe it's a better idea. So, this kind of thing. I'm going to just show a little bit of some of the themes in my own work. I'm doing it very quickly because that's not the point today. Sensing. Inside the bag, there's a light sensor. The extra light voice for you. He doesn't know how it works. He's figuring it out. We use our own senses to experiment and record the meetings between the object and ourselves, and the sensors embedded in these interfaces do the same to us. This is the same boy about half an hour later when his mum comes and he's explaining how the bag works. He doesn't actually say anything. thing that I work a lot with is this notion of naive electronics. I brought some of these things along today, but I have this particular little silly project called the Blackbox Project. It's an array of black boxes, identical black boxes, looking like this, and they're basically taking light input and turning it into, say, light or sound or touch. So it's just an array of very, very simple translations. So that, for example, this one, hello, translates sound into light. But I brought about 4 of them around, and I'm gonna get Michelle to pass them around while I talk. There's only one that makes noise, and I don't think it's super loud, but, you know, use your judgment.
Hello.
This is Sophie. So what I do with these is that, this is a light, sound to light thing. I just give them to kids, and I get them to tell me how they think they work.
Azt hiszem tudom. Egy színházba valami oknál van, ami hogy fölveszik, és akkor fények jönnek hozzá ki. Így úgy veszik fel, hogy fények vannak hozzá.
Jó, megállsz. És ha megállsz?
Again, I'm not giving them any instructions. I'm just trying to
Bonjour.
figure it out themselves. So the other sort of theme that comes in my work is this idea of texture and complex surfaces. These pictures next 3 pictures I'm showing is from yesterday. We're doing workshops at NIMC. And what we're doing is we're making wearable interfaces with kids, and we're spending very little time doing so. But the idea is that by making folds and pockets, you can add depth rather than surface area to the space around us. And you create another zone, an intermediary zone. Not clearly part of the body, the intimate self, or to the public, communal self. This particular thing is a sound generator sitting under the lapel of a jacket of this girl. This is a piece of jewelry built by these 2 girls. It's a light, and it only lights up when they touch each other. It's fairly simple stuff. This is a worn jacket, again, sewn beautifully into this really nice hip-hop hoodie by my new favorite guy, this guy. So, one of the other things that I do is I work for STIME, and we think a lot about instruments. And I'm promising to make this very short because it gets a little bit more techie. But I've been reading this guy, Randall Jones. He wrote a thesis on intimate control for physical modeling synthesis. Very techie, I'll spare you. But he basically says instruments need to have 3 things: playability, plausibility, and intimacy. So playability is ergonomics, precision, accuracy, timing, flow. All the things you're expecting from an interface, but particularly from an instrument. The other one is plausibility. Is the sound understandable? Does it tell us at all how it was made? The other one is intimacy. Looking for a wide range of expression within a small range of movements. This immediately makes an instrument hard to play. It's hard to play a violin, but you can immediately make a sound, not a good one, but you can spend a whole life trying to play a good sound. So basically what I would like to sort of suggest, coming from my instrument part of my soapbox, is to build interfaces that are like instruments. Easy to play, hard to master, understandable within our body experience, a large range within a small physical space, and I would like to suggest that we attempt to make them both magical and strange. C'est ça? How am I doing?
Thank you very much, Kristina. Are there any questions from the audience at this point? Kristina, I saw that you use a lot of children in your research. Why is that?
Because they call you on your crap. There's nothing like a 5-year-old to call you on your crap. You know, adults will come to your installation, they'll go, ooh, very interesting. And then they leave, and you think, oh, okay, what did they actually mean? But if you bore a 5-year-old, you will know it immediately. They will go, this is boring, I want to go home. You're no fun. You know, and there's an old saying that if you're ever going to be the evil master of the universe, you need to have a 5-year-old on your advisory committee. And he will advise you against things like telling the good guy what your evil plan is before killing him. Wrong idea. So, you know, you always, you know, it's a classic thing of the emperor's new clothes. Kids are great because they call things as they see them. Also, of course, in terms of technology, they have no preconception about what things are supposed to do. So one of the things that happens in the musical piece, the first thing I show, is, unfortunately I don't have this on footage, but there's a hat that makes a sound when you move it. And this one 4-year-old was playing with it for a really long time, and he walks back to his own clothes. And I just saw it out of the corner of my eye. He picks up one shoe, and he just takes one of his shoes, and he does this. And then the other one, and kind of does this. And then he puts it down. He's not disappointed. He's not upset. He just wanted to check whether he had just learned something new, something general, something that just generally worked, or whether this was indeed a special situation. And this is what's really wonderful about that age group, because you know, they're not trying to impress you with their technical knowledge, and they're not trying to not look stupid. They're just ready to call whether something works or not.
Okay, so maybe that's a good message to the audience, to be honest tonight in their criticism and playfulness with the installations. Yeah. Any more questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Kristina. This is